connect to those business in China. So without further ado, let me pass it on to Jianshen.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good. I'm having a technical problem with my computer, and now it's solved. I think it's okay. Very nice to be here. So before I start, I am happy to do a simple introduction to myself. I think the team's comments is overstated. I know China. China is a massive country, and the sector is huge. So I only say I'm only scratching the surface, even after 20 years working in the government and traveling China 3 times. But still, because the market is keep changing. So my brief introduction is just about myself. I came to the UK in '87 as a student, and studied here in Cambridge. And then after I graduated, I did almost 10 years research on neuroscience, and then I moved to industry for a few years. And then by year 2000, I joined the UK government. So I became the first Chinese working for the UK government as the specialist. So that time where the government is called DTI, Department of Trade and Industry. And as the global watch specialist, I travel over Asia, in Japan, Korea, China, Singapore. So I spent almost 10 years traveling sourcing technologies, set up collaborations. And then I move on to UKTI, which is the DIT's, before it's called DIT, yeah, it's called UKTI. And as the R&D specialist, so that gave me a chance. And then began to focus on China. China has emerging as a regional power, and I began to work on R&D collaborations. So a lot of European companies looking for R&D collaboration, and to China, and so we set up like over 50 projects over the last during that 5 years period. And then after that, I joined DIT, and so the DIT is the Department for International Trade. We spend a lot of time attracting investment from overseas, and then I become more focused on China. So every year I bring 10 to 15 FDI projects from China to the UK. So there's some multi-million pounds investment from China, from the pharmaceutical industry, ended up in the UK, and so tap into the technology sector. So that's me, and so I'm still working for DIT, and happy to answer all your questions. So may I have the first slide, first questions? I think in this subgroup, and there's a lot of people asking how to enter China market, and so there's a lot of questions asking what's the best practice, what's the major barrier, what's the major problems. I think in general, my gut feeling is if you want to do business with China, and first of all, China is the market you cannot ignore, and even under different political regime and different political system, and China as one of the biggest market in the world. Any countries want to develop, especially like Britain, have to think about how to enter China market, the Chinese market. Especially like the pharmaceutical sector, there's a lot of need for China, for Western companies go to China, invest medicine, best practice, best medical device into the market. So that's the win-win situation. But how to get this market is the key. I think like any other country, when you go to a new territory, you have to familiarize with the local culture, the local system, and it will take time. For multinationals, probably it's relatively easy for them because they can set up operation, employ a lot of local people, and gradually learn how to do business in China or another country. For SMEs, can be quite difficult. I think it's you understand of your financial situation, and also worry about the competition, worry about your copyright, or worry about your IP. That's all understandable, but I think first of all, you have to think about what's the best way. You are not selling like oil or gas. You're selling technology. You're selling your services. So that's the most important. That you have to understand the market, understand that there's a need for your technology. And then you have to do a market analysis to understand how to enter the market into China with the best practice. But I think the most easy or quickest way, would be to find somebody you know first. You need somebody open doors for you. I always say, EIT or me or my colleagues in China or in here, we are like a door opener. We open doors for you, and then once you enter the market, when you get into the room, and then you can do your best. I think the Teams company also have that role, help you to understand the market, help you to open the doors for you. But I think later on, how to survive in that market is totally up to you. But we'll do our best to help you. But it is essential you get your altitude right, you get the right people. So from my experience, I always feel like if you have somebody you know, either your employee or your colleague or your friends come from China or knowing China better than you, take their advice and then find the right partner. That's the key. I think it's essential. So many companies dealing with China and failed and burned really badly, come back say, oh no, we cheated or did something really wrong. Well, I think the partner is important. If you have a good partner and they understand the Chinese culture, they understand the business environment, they do can help you, give you a read up and to compete with others. Just bear this in mind. Not only British companies want to enter China, every other country, like US, like Germany, like Belgium, like Denmark, every other country want to go to China. And, even right now, people say, oh, there's so many difficult barriers and difficult to enter. It's equal. Every country is equal. There are always a reason behind it. For instance, you say, well, there's some export barriers. We can't go to China market that easily. Well, I think probably that's true to other countries as well, because think about it, if Chinese government want to protect their own industry, if the industry is ready to take off, they probably will put barriers and they'll protect their own industry. But I think on paper, they wouldn't say it, they wouldn't do it. But on the other hand, in practice, they probably do it in a quiet way. But how to make your business or make your technology outstanding is the key. So if you want to create that, develop your business, develop your technology in the UK is the key. So I always say, if your company wants to survive longer in China, you don't want to sell, one type of good for a short period of time and then it's yet never come back. That's short term. But if you want to long term, the best way is keep your R&D in-house in the UK, make it better all the time. And then you got upper hand to compete with others, and then you can survive longer. I think the big farmers do exactly the same, and the big medical device companies do exactly the same. So that's my advice. And some people ask me about how to get more information about the Chinese hospitals. That's a very, very difficult question. I have to say, hospital in China, they got 7 layers. We got, we have to spend a lot of time to understand the healthcare system in China. Hospital is so complex. Basically, there's a state certified 3A plus hospital, which is the major hospital in the big cities. And then you have a county level, you have a city level, so many different levels of hospital. Now in China, there's a lot of private hospitals as well. So they operate under one private company or group of companies. So it is very complex, but you don't need to so ambitious. Even big farmers, they want to enter China, they want to sell their products. They are aiming either top to bottom or bottom to top, to sell their products. Depends on the products, they're aiming, 3A plus hospitals or even some county hospitals. But just take some step-by-step process. I know a company basically here, they want to sell their product to China, and then I put them in touch with a company. They have links with 300 children hospitals in China. I think that's using that as a leverage, driving it into the system. That's probably the best way, because there's a massive country. Think about 1.4 billion people and so many hospitals. You just, you can't, if you can, as I say, conquer one province is it's a huge step, not one city, not, like a one province can be over 100 million people living there. And that's a huge market. How to enter that is up to you, but it's just you need this kind of information beforehand before you move in, and then that can help you to understand the market better in the first instance. I think I've been talking enough about this. Can we move to the second slide? So we have to talk about COVID-19. Yes, so we are still in the middle of the crisis. It is very hard. I think everybody knows when early in January, when the disease started in Wuhan, everybody panicked. And but I'm very glad to say China is more or less out of COVID-19 now. I read on the news only 2 days ago, China, Wuhan city did 11 million people's testing within 10 days. I think the result was quite remarkable. Under 200 people positive, which also they are not that highly contagious. So they more or less the disease are under control. I think I read the latest news. There's only 2 people positive identified in China yesterday. So it's more or less China is back on its feet. And it will take time for us, for UK, to back on our feet as well. But it's the impact is huge. It's I think that during the crisis in China, everybody says just change the way of thinking. People, what's your best way for you? You can work remotely. I think that's kind of. I think we'll come to this later. Somebody said, telemedicine, using AI or using other technology to work remotely. I think in China as well, the hospital began to using modern technology, using AI, using IoT actually to diagnose, to treating patients, and also to seeking experts to avoiding travel to big cities, to big hospitals. So the COVID-19 has caused a lot of problems globally, but I think in China, it's back to normal, more or less back to normal. And then there's a people began to think, oh, what's the best way to avoid this crisis in the future? It's very difficult to say. On the other hand, I think right now in China, every city, from the central government guideline, every city need to stockpile PPEs at least for 10 days for its citizens. So that's a very big task. So even now, we have a lot of import from China buying PPEs. But on the other hand, UK need to increase our capacity to self-sufficient. I think our Health Secretary mentioned a few days ago, there's 2 billion capacity is on its way. UK is going to make its own PPE, own mask. I think that's a good thing to do. On the other hand, make the logistic more efficient between countries can be also a key in the future. I think the second question is talk about some multinationals want to set up their plant close to the market. China is going to do the same. It's still very early. I think, especially for Chinese pharmaceutical industry. Only news I know, I think there's a company setting up their manufacturers in the US, but under the current US and China relation, I think those plants probably less functional. But before the lockdown, I was in China last November. I visited one company. They are making insulins, and they got the biggest contract for a multinational pharmaceutical company. They are considering set up their plant in the US and in Europe. I think I tried to convince the company to set up in the UK. Even they're collaborating with in Germany, but I think it's going to happen, but with very slow pace. Because
what did you say they produce? I didn't get that.
It's insulin. They're making insulin.
Okay, there is a little bit echo, so if try not to move, perhaps.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Sorry. I think my sound quality is not very good, and my computer sometimes freeze. I don't know what's wrong, but I try to do my best.
Mm.
So they began to do to set with their manufacturers, and I think as the government try really hard to convince some Chinese companies to to invest in the UK, like a greenfield investment, and we provide a lot of opportunities. I think for the Chinese companies taking steps, they have to calculate. First of all, if the human cost is too much, they probably will say it's difficult for them to do it. But on the other hand, when they make the best calculation, they will decide to do so, and it can be a very vast amount of investment. Probably you heard. I'm not because it's not landed in the UK, which I feel quite embarrassed. But on the other hand, it is a Chinese company. You probably heard of Wuxi Uptech. They put 400 million investment into Ireland. They are manufacturing vaccines for Pfizer, for Roche. I think it's Roche, yeah. So basically, all those companies, once they have this opportunity, once they have the cash, they will do it. But it's always business driven rather than political driven. So we try really hard to get a Wuxi Tech come to the UK, but in the end they didn't. They ended up because in Ireland the tax there is just incomparable. So, but on the other hand, we do have a lot of collaboration with all sorts of companies. And each time a big pharma CEO come over to the UK, always take them around and take them to see different sites. And I think one of the company not setting up the big manufacturer, but they set the R&D and also a research center. Is the Pharmaron it's also a CRO company based in Beijing. They set up their R&D center. I think 2 R&D centers actually in the UK. One in Cardiff, one in just outside London, and then they are doing really well and expanded as well. So they are not manufactured per se, but on the other hand, they do begin to have their footstep in the UK. And we have some service companies began to do the same. I think a lot of people, if you're doing research, you probably know a company called Novogene. They do a lot of, they're probably the largest service company. They are just at my doorstep. They are in Cambridge, and they first moved in Birmingham. Now they are in Cambridge Science Park. Actually, it's in QS Park. So they employ from 10 people, 20 people. Now it's over 60. So there's a very big step to enter the UK market. Now they are going to set up their different facilities. Every certain diseases, they are going to do a study on here as well. So Chinese companies they're very smart. They have to calculate the gain and the invest. So if they put too much money into a market and then they can't get their money back, they have to think twice. But on the other hand, it is a kind of move. They have the right technology, they have the right service, and it can be quite good to localize. And I think historically, the company I've been helped a lot is the Mandarin. There's a medical device company. They're based in Huntington, but they become more or less number one in monitoring equipment in the UK now. They supply Edinburghs to many hospitals actually all over the country. So, that's over 10 years period. So gradually with 10 people, now it's over 100 people. So those companies have a long-term vision and also with the right technology, which will encourage them to do so. Another question is about quality of Chinese standard. I think it's for companies have a presence in the UK or historically they've been doing a lot of services to the UK. You don't need to worry about quality. I think it's a gradual learning process. Some Chinese companies, you've got some Chinese companies, their products, they're not up to standard. A lot of complaints about it. But I think once become a multinational, once become a reputable company, and they do pay attention. They have a very vigorous test before they enter the market, and then they care about the reputation and anything else. But however, we do face a lot of companies who do not have the right certificates, do not have the right quality, and they cheat on you basically, especially during the COVID-19 crisis. When the company is substandard, we have a lot of complaints about it. But however, the good company or good practice always preventing this. I think Teams company can help you to do due diligence, to do the statistics checking, to verify. Because certain companies they do have only have their certification or other certificates is in Chinese. So you do need people understand the system, understand to verify this, to do the quality control for you. But I think at the end of the day, you need to build a long-term relation with your supplier. Otherwise, you will have a few surprises, but it takes time. The role of DIT during this pandemic, well, I think when this crisis started early, before the lockdown, and everybody panicked. But I think DIT in China did a remarkable job. Most of the ventilators, PPEs actually is by DIT local staff. We bought everything from China. So I think only last week there's a number 100 flights from China to here, taking PPEs from China to here. So DIT played a very important role to product procurement. And also, more or less, we are very soon will be back to normal business as usual in the future. I think we are still supporting UK business, helping UK companies enter the China market, and also helping Chinese companies invest in the UK. So that overall won't change. But over that period, we change our role. Basically, we become the government procurement team to buy products from China. And they did a good job. I think they learned a lot. Also, because we have a lot of employees in China, they never get any business sense. But through this process, they have, as Chinese say, how deep the water is. How can be, how to negotiate how to get the quality, how to solve the logistic problems. So everything done in a professional way. I think it's a learning process, but in the same time, I think it's a good training for everybody. Well, back to normal. I think one good news about UK-China relation. I think only a few days ago, Chinese ambassador had a meeting with the head of CBI. I think the Chinese government, I think right now, China is forbidden for foreigners entering China. And so that travel ban still exists. However, the Chinese embassy is going to issue some new passport. Basically, if you're not passport, but it's a healthy passport. Basically, if you do your test in the UK, you're totally COVID-19 negative. And once you got that certificate, you can enter China without a 14 days quarantine. So that's good news for you to travel. If you get that certificate, and you can still travel to China, because the biggest hurdle is once you landed there, you will need 14 days quarantine at your own expense. So that's more or less stop anybody, any foreign passport holders travel to China. But Chinese government is still taking Chinese citizens, but you have also to face 14 days quarantine. But if you do the test in the UK, you don't need to stay 14 days in the hotel and waiting for the result to come out. But they will ask you to do an on-site temperature test. So once you're clear, you can start your own business. You can travel around in China. But I think it's the first step. I think gradually the lockdown will be eased and people are back to normal. Okay, Tim, can I have this next slide, please?
Yep.
That's a very good question. I think the ODI, Chinese, I think from 2016 to 17, there's some criticism for Chinese, rich Chinese investing overseas ruthlessly, and cause a lot of concerns, either from the Chinese side or from the Western side. And now, I think since 2017, Chinese government decided to put some restrictions. I think some sectors are encouraged, and some sectors are restricted, and some sectors are forbidden. I think within the life science, we are quite safe. Even the investment value, if it's under 1 billion, is you have to report to the Chinese authority to file your to give details about your intention. But I think, as far as I know, all the investment from China within the life science sector never had a problem. I think if you are in the property development sector or in real estate, you need to spend a little bit more time to go through the paper. I think one of the golden rule is if you got anything to do with one belt, one road, you're probably easier to get approval. But on the other hand, if you want to buy land, buy properties, you have to be within the right sector. So certain sectors you are not allowed to send money overseas, like gambling, like anything to do with military. Basically, anything banned from Western country to China, you cannot invest. I think it makes sense that, so when I within life science sector, I think the trend is still strong, especially during this U.S.-China, trade war. Chinese companies began to look at Europe. The UK is still quite outstanding. Basically, you will notice some German companies, German government put some actual restrictions for Chinese investment. And the UK never put that never put that kind of barriers to restricting Chinese to invest. But certain way we have to look carefully. We're always looking the best partner for win-win situation rather than just to lose our industry completely. But on the other hand, we encourage investment from overseas, not only for China. How to engage, the best way to engage with Chinese VCs. Chinese VCs are very active. Big VCs always have representatives in the country, in the US, in Silicon Valley, in the UK. I saw a lot of VCs virtually during this lockdown period. And they are still strong. I think only 2 days ago, probably if you follow the news, only 2 days ago, on the 26th of May, Oxford Nanopore received 48 million investment. The leading investors from China. And before that, Chinese Construction Bank and their investment arm put almost 100 million to Oxford Nanopore. So the investment is still going, still under intensive negotiation, just to be, less publicized, I have to say. But I think both sides are very active virtually, yeah. Next question. Right. That's a very interesting question. I think the first one about the vaccine. I think Lancet published a paper very recently talking about the Chinese vaccine. And I have to say, only 2 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks, 10 days ago, we had a call from a Chinese company want to collaborating with UK on vaccine development. And but I think it's most importantly, we are raising at this time. We need a patient to test the vaccine, and currently the COVID-19 is dying down in the UK. I think patient recruitment can be a big issue for Chinese companies, for any companies. Basically, I think the reason China want to collaborate with UK is they need a patient group, and right now the patients is disappearing so fast, and it's going to be difficult. However, China is the front runner, and probably you heard the phase 2 trial between China and Canada. So it's a company called Casino. Yeah, Casino is the company. Casino, they are doing phase 2 trials. Is the Chinese-Canadian collaboration. I think the phase 2 result is pretty encouraging, and they are doing pretty well. And I think the company, another big players in China is the Sinopharm. It's a state-owned enterprise, but Sinopharm involved with two vaccines. They both deactivated the vaccine. And they have a collaboration with Biological Science and also Beijing Institute of Biological Science. They are both into the phase 2 stage, and they are very keen to collaborating with countries have enough patients. And another company is called Sinovac. It's based in Beijing. I've been to that company several times. They developed a vaccine against SARS, but SARS just disappeared suddenly, so they put that vaccine on hold. And they're very glad to learn they are also in the phase 2 trials. Both Sinovac and Sinopharm, they have a capacity to produce 100 million doses per year. So I think AstraZeneca is aiming to get 1 billion doses a year. It's a very big challenge, and but Oxford is doing a good job. Even people say a 50% chance of success, but still better than nothing. And it's a very big challenge, and also it's the race against time. Currently, there's over 100 vaccine programs globally. For the US, China, UK, all front runners. Hopefully, I think the Chinese made an announcement 2 weeks ago saying the Chinese vaccine is developed, is going to be shared globally. So it is, I think that's encouraging for people who need a vaccine to save human beings' life. And I think UK government announced a special grant for collaborations for vaccine development before the Oxford trial. There's a group in Imperial College, actually, they got a substantial amount of money from the government to develop vaccine. That's, I know that research knows actually they are collaborating with a company based in Shenzhen. So it's a UK-China collaboration between scientists that's still very strong. But I remember many years ago during the SARS crisis, I helped MRC work with China on SARS. And the company, UK government committed, £500,000 and the Chinese £5 million to develop a vaccine. And I think, that historical bond is still there. People began also, keep work together to solve the problem globally. Yeah, well, the AI learning, I think China, if you talk about the big companies, Tencent and also Alibaba, the big players in this sector, and they began to introduce that technology. They invest heavily in life sciences, and they began to work with Chinese healthcare sector and also internet sector in China. And globally, they set up a lot of collaborations. I think it's going to be, think about it, the future of NHS, think about the future of Chinese healthcare or American healthcare. The biggest challenge is waste. Basically, we have so many resources, we can combine them together, we can't use them efficiently. That's why the human cost and also the time consuming is difficult for any country to cope with the cost. However, using IT, using big data, using 5G technology can solve the problem. And China healthcare, it is quite preliminary. We all say biggest advantage for UK is we have a NHS, we have a fairly good healthcare system, and but it's still not perfect. And China is trying to to serve the people, 1.4 billion with limited resources. And one of the way is using modern technology. And the 5G and also big data will play. I'm very glad to learn there's we run a lot of missions to China, especially on digital health. And there's a lot of interest. SMEs from the UK using this opportunity into the China market. And China is definitely need this than anybody else. The country, unbalanced healthcare system in China for most expert. Communicating with China. Well, you know, there's so many things going on right now, and even for us, when we were helping the DIT China team to procurement, to buy PPEs or buy ventilators to source materials from China, I think that the big challenge is a massive country. You know, even the Chinese authority give us a list of which country, which company can be trusted. We still find it very challenging. So the best way is we talk to the Chinese MOFCOM. There's an organization called CCMHPIE, and they are representing Chinese pharmaceutical companies. They give us a lot of guidance, give us a lot of information regarding the background of the company. And so that's an open panel. You can talk to those kind of trade associations to get some background. And also, you know, actually, I'm planning to go to China June originally to attend the China Bio, but now it's become virtual now, postponed and become virtual event. And also, I'm going to talk about UK healthcare system on the Chinese medical fair, so it's a CMEF in October. And that's the kind of, right now we are considering doing virtual online version of this kind of communication. But I think one of the best way is, you know, there are some restrictions. But on the other hand, it's very easy to tap into the Chinese system using Chinese WeChat. I think WeChat, I'm not promoting WeChat, but on the other hand, it's a very good channel to learn Chinese business sector. You know, once you are in, you can probably learn a lot from different experts, give you advice, give you some guidance on, you know, the WeChat group that's very active in China. And I think in UK you can download this app on your phone. It's all in Chinese, but it's we do have a lot of foreigners using it and communicate, just like WhatsApp. You know, it's a Chinese version of WhatsApp, but it's quite informative. But I think person-to-person communication is the key. Somehow, you need to build this kind of a network in China, and then you can feel the pulse of the country, you can feel the trend, what's going on in the sector. That's probably the best way to go forward. Next one.
I think that's the end of
All
our
right.
pre-submitted questions. Thank you, Jensen, for running through all these questions. It's really very interesting to hear the IT's roles in this particular, you know, fighting against the pandemic, working very closely with the Chinese government and also businesses to ensure there are enough PPEs in this country. But apart from that, I think one of the questions that previous people asked was sort of, is it easier to enter the Chinese market now, or is it more complicated?
Right.
Yes, I was thinking that from what we have seen in the business here, with the clients we work with, of course, at the moment, everyone's trying to get their heads above water to make sure they survive. But I don't think that the timing is bad or worse or better. If China is important, as always, it should consider entering into China, no matter, you know, the exact timing. What's your sort of view on that, Jianshen?
Well, I think it's within the pharmaceutical sector or the life science sector, it's easier to some extent. That's purely because you know, the biggest investor to China in the past is US. You know, there's so many pharmaceutical companies into China, and because now Donald Trump will have this kind of ideology. You know, think about America first. We want to get all the US companies back to their own soil, not in China. So there's a huge demand in China. So they have so many, you know, development zones. They are waiting for foreign companies to enter China, and so they try to keep all the Western companies, you know, do not pull out, and also they have a gesture to encourage more companies actually into China.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if the sector is heavily polluted, probably won't be that easy compared to 20 years ago. Because in the past, it's like regardless of whatever your business is, or as long as it's foreign investment, you are welcome. And now it's like if the sector is heavily polluted, you cause environmental issue, probably won't welcome you. But the incentive is still quite attractive. You can think about China is not, it's a big country. Basically, if you say, oh, Shanghai is saturated, Beijing is saturated, do not go to Shanghai or Beijing. But other cities, like, I was hosting delegations from Guangdong. Guangdong is more or less, we believe it's saturated. There's so many companies there. No, there's still plenty of new areas. They're looking for foreign investment. They have a very attractive options for you if you come to set up your manufacturer there, and then you can get a lot of government support. So you have to really consider which area to go. People just sometimes they say, oh, I've been asking to go to Sichuan, I've been asking to go to Jiangsu. They all give me different package. Which one I should choose? Well, I say, use your gut feeling and use your personal connection. If you feel like easy for you to travel, easy for you to access talented people, and they put that into consideration, and then you can make your decision. But I don't think it's harder. I think I think the complication, people say, well, it's I think some of them is political, some of them is kind of the time has changed. Basically, anything with environmental issue can be, just put this into consideration. Yeah.
So the recent government's amendment to the foreign investment category is meant to encourage more foreign investment into China. But
that's right. Yeah, the policy never changed. Yeah.
Yeah. And they are adding more encouraged categories. So in that sense, it is better policy-wise. But in reality, when companies go into China, they still have all these entry barriers, all the registration, licensing process with the state authorities. So that has not been made easier from this pandemic, right?
No, I think it's. I think that the lessons have learned because from our end, I think most of the British companies are very genuine and they are actually want to enter the market as a technology. And but I'm not saying all the companies are the same. Some companies do have they have problems. They want to get in the Chinese money, and then China have to scrutinize any company's intention and to actually make sure your technology is ready for China, is good for China. They have to have all these kind of criteria to fit in. I think, but on the other hand, the best way for UK companies to consider or to have a peace of mind, they're using agent. Basically, you're using agent to find a good partner and then find a good location and then go through the bureaucrats. It's not your job. Basically, ask the agent to do it for you. I know a lot of local government, they have a local incentives. They have it's kind of one-stop shop. So you don't need to go through all the bureaus to get their stamps on your paper. Somebody will do it for you. But as long as you think hard, as long as your technology is ready for China, your technology can make money for you. That's the key. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. You're wasting other people's time.
So on that, I actually wanted to quickly introduce what Crayfish does. So for example, we have a service to actually help clients to find those agents, the right agents. It's not advisable for companies just go to any Chinese company who approach them out of blue. It's much better to look at the sector and who are the active players that actually can sell into your target audience. So we have that under our categories of expertise service, where we have many providers in China, and also Crayfish can tailor that service as well. And in terms of building government relations in China, it's still very important. As you mentioned, Jianshen, the channels to communicate with China is sometimes through government or organization and also trade associations. So Crayfish, again, we have those connections. We can help companies. We can match them with them. And one of the things you mentioned, Jensen, is the investment from Chinese companies into the UK. And in terms of a risk appetite, we see that Chinese investors typically are still quite risk averse. They are less likely to invest into very early stage startups. And so we actually in Crayfish, we have a accelerator program where we have anchor investors to come in to invest very early stage startups, typically in medical device engineering and new materials, not so much in a sort of a drug delivery, pharma side. And where there's as long as the company has an MVP, the sort of almost ready product to commercialize, then there are Chinese investors who work with us, interested in investing them, and Crayfish can handhold, help implement the Chinese strategy agreed with the investor. So one of the things I wanted to also comment is that Jensen, have you seen this two-way distribution, which we have also advised some clients to look into, is they find an agent in China who act actually as their distributor in China. In the meantime, they also, through the agents themselves, some of the Chinese companies have medical device or product that they can then distribute back into Europe market. So in that way, they have a sort of mutual licensing or distribution deal?
Oh yeah, that's all sort of deals is happening all the time. I think you're quite right. The pharmaceutical sector is a long-term investment, so you have to have a very deep pocket. You have to and also have a very good patient to waiting good things to happen. But the medical device is relatively easy. You can time span is shorter, and also you can see the result within a few years' time. So if you're choosing a few projects, if one of them take off, and then you're going your money back. So that's the trend. Basically, a lot of Chinese companies are looking for easy access, quick exit. That's the kind of way Chinese operate.
And again, in entering into the Chinese market, IP, of course, is always an issue. You probably touched upon it, but in terms of, again, now in a race against time to develop vaccine, how open do you see the research institute or scientists here? How open is the attitude towards sharing this knowledge and data with their counterparts from China or in China?
I think that's just a learning process. I think some of the UK scientists, wasn't so careful compared to a US counterpart, because some of the technology is IPable. You can actually license this in the future, but somehow UK scientists is less sensitive to it, don't have this kind of business sense, so they are quite open. But however, it is the universities began to control this now. The universities began to learn how to deal with this. As I mentioned, Oxford Nanopore is invested firstly by IP Group. It's a company investing in startups, and so when they have like over 20 companies within life sciences, they want to get a further investment because they are very early stage investment company. And actually 2 years ago, actually, when we went to China together, we did a roadshow, and so they all presented. Oxford Nanopore also one of the presenters, and they got a huge amount of response. Chinese say, "Oh wow, we like this technology, we want to invest," and then they got almost 100 million investment, and now this one another 48 million. So Chinese are hungry for technology. They're looking for the best technology. Probably you heard it yesterday. Huada, BGI, they have a instrument arm. Just raised another, I think it's $10 billion US dollars. Yeah. for their for their sequencers technology, because they Huadai used to be the largest sequencing service company, but they don't have their own technology platform. So they used to collaborate with Illumina. Now they have their own. They bought a US company called Complete Genomics, and now they're developing their sequencers by themselves. And so they raise money easily, and because they know even their big service provider, they don't have their core technology, they can be easily squeezed out. So now they spend money and to develop this, and you know, they never, you know, lack of investors. People just say, oh, well, you want to do this, well, put the money in. And so equally the same. If a UK company want to enter the China market, want to think about, okay, I'm looking for investment because I want a certain China right, I want a global right, but how to deal with Chinese investors? This can all can be negotiable. You know, Chinese still relatively cash rich. They have a lot of money, and a lot of people made money from their, you know, their property development. And now they just like, oh, well, we need to find somewhere, some area to make my money grow again. So yeah, it's a good time for every company to do so.
Yes, if you talk to the right investor, make sure that they can actually invest the money out of the country, because we've seen many cases where the Chinese, some Chinese investors say they can invest into UK startup, and then the companies get excited and share on the technology, and eventually the money cannot come out, which is a waste of time for of course, the UK side, but also the danger in terms of the knowledge, leak, etc. So that's something we, again, at Crayfish, we help a lot of companies to screen those investors to make sure they talk to the right investor. And even if the right investor, the way to communicate and negotiate is really important. Sometimes it's beyond the language. It's the expectation and you know, the term could be wrong. Just for example, we recently had a Cambridge spin-out company, which were looking at an IP side, IP transfer. So when they say IP transfer in Chinese, it actually means differently in English when it says licensing. It actually is quite different. So it's an assignment versus licensing. So the two sides obviously have different expectations. So we actually managed to clear that to make sure that they actually mean the same thing. So
yeah, it's a typical lost in translation.
Exactly. So again, Crayfish has a great translation offer where we actually currently have a free machine translation engine for medical terms. So if anyone wants to try them, please do let us know. We have a number of Cambridge companies using this free machine translation to save their time in sharing data, particularly about the antibodies development, etc. in the current situation. I think with this we sort of finished all our pre-submitted questions. Now we have actually just 11. So for those who still have more questions, who would like to ask, this is the time for you to do that now. Then we can spend a few minutes going through them. I've actually already have one coming in. Actually, this is interesting. It says now we're looking to go back to work. Where do we actually buy the good quality face masks? Is there, let's see, does DIT provide that?
No, we don't. Well, I think the face mask is a very big challenging problem because there's so many different standards. EU have a EU standard, so we have a CE mark. US have a N95. They have a NOSH qualification, and Chinese have a Chinese version. And doing the test is time consuming. Take like 6 weeks, sometimes even 10 weeks to give you a good analysis paper, tell you these masks are good or bad. So over this period, we just cannot, do that. Basically, we have to trust the authority to say, okay, you did a test a few years ago, I believe you, and give us the best quality. So more or less, when we do the procurement in China for the PPEs, we more or less focusing on state-owned enterprise. So that's the only way, because there's so many companies. It's just unbelievable, tens of thousands of companies coming up saying we have a very good quality product, and we can't verify this. So in the end, we said, well, even it's difficult, but we have to go through big, reliable suppliers. So we ended up buying from the state-owned big manufacturer with a long history and with a track record. I think still that on that we have a few problems, but they still, I think it's much better than nothing. Right now it's like there's so many companies. Actually, Chinese companies, also some Western companies, they are making masks. And I think remember when you buy, if you are a small company, when you buy those kind of products, you buy this in mind. The Chinese standards are different from Western standard, from the CE standard, or from the American standard. And also, just to make sure, you better check thoroughly the certificate is authentic. Sometimes it's not. We had experience. That's because, as I said, if the company only a few months old, there's no way they'll get a CE. Basically, the quality control will take time. The certificate will take 2 months, at least 1 month, to get back to you. How can you get a certificate, within 10 days? Just impossible. So just you have to be really careful. Yeah.
Yeah, actually on that, I totally can echo that, because we are actually at the moment putting supply of face masks and gels, etc., onto our platform so that our clients and SMEs can come to buy smaller orders, and that has been checked. So through this, our team have been checking the CE certificates, for example, and a lot of them are actually looks dodgy. And so now we've screened them, only those ones that had the CE mask from before the pandemic. And, we do not accept any ones that have those since March, because they look, we do not trust them, but also they have to be on this, what you call the white list from the government, Chinese government. Yeah. So they are credible. On 1st of June, actually, companies can come to our platform and put the correct requirement through for this. We are not, Alibaba or e-commerce to sell masks, but we wanted to help those small companies to make it easier for them to buy these essential things for them to go back to work. There's another question coming through. It says, what do you think about other Asian countries' role in the supply chain adjustment? Can they replace China?
Well, I think we're always looking for alternative suppliers. I think we just secured another country to supply, more than 1 billion gloves for NHS. And but I think some other countries, there are so many just like what's it called, the restrictions in place, like India, like Korea. They have their, because of the pandemic, they have their PPEs or testing kit banned travel, sending overseas. And because we are waiting for the second wave, we're just worried about the future. So we need to get a supply. So actually, DIT, not only in China, but in India, in Pakistan, in Thailand, in Malaysia, we're all actively looking for products to supply NHS. We did a lot of work. Part of our job, I do a net shift, sometimes over the last few weeks, just go through their paper from the suppliers from Thailand, just make sure the products is fitting up to standard. Basically, UK rules and the European rules are very, very stringent. It's very difficult in certain countries actually to naively sell the product to NHS. But we do have we do hope, we have a multiple suppliers, and because it's like 2 billion gloves only can last 200 days for NHS. So we need a lot, just basically ways very short. It's like the PPE is an issue. Basically, even how much we prepared for the pandemic beforehand. When this pandemic happening, and the demand is 100 times, 200 times. How can you cope with that? Just the shortage is global. It's not that easy. Yeah.
Another questions. Where to find information of reliable medical packaging materials suppliers in China? Most suppliers on Alibaba.com or 1688 seem to lack certain qualification papers to Europe. Even they claim that they have been exporting to Europe, American, etc.
It's a very good question. Yeah, it's I think somehow. I mean, I mentioned earlier is the trade association called the CCC MHPIE. So that's the Chinese Chamber of Commerce for Medical Pharmaceutical Import Export Association, and that's affiliated to MOFCOM. They produce the white list. Basically, for PPE export out of China, all the companies have go through very stringent examination to be on that white list. If you're coming on that list, you are more or less say you're reliable. It's easier for you to go through custom clearance. So that chamber is they have a almost, especially for medical devices packaging, they have a very in-depth knowledge about the sector. So you open the dialogue with them, and then they do come to UK from time to time. Yeah, hosted many times, and they can provide you some key information. But on the other hand, they are too big. Basically, they have 50,000 members. They have too many companies. So for every individual company, you do need some company to do the due diligence for you, and maybe through you, but I'm not sure which way is the best way to do so. But you will take time. I think you need to test water first. You need to see some products earlier, and then make sure your customer in the UK satisfied, and then gradually increase the order value. I think right at the beginning is quite difficult. It is very difficult. Yeah.
Thank you, Jensen. That's really, really helpful. I hope our audience got that very clearly now, noted down. So that's end of the questions for today as well. Again, thank you very much, Jensen. And,
no problem, yeah.
And thanks everyone for joining us today. And we do have a next event coming up soon. This is on China's strategy, particularly looking at supply chain. So it's not just on life science, it will cover all other aspects, but it would be interesting for people to come and have also questions put through. So for today's session, we will have a recorded session available to send to everyone, probably in a couple of days. And if there's any other questions, welcome to send it to us as well. And once again, thank you again, Jensen, for your time.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so goodbye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.